Well, this morning, the big story, of course, was that USDA came out with their weekly export sales report. No overnight sales again. So that means we have only had one sale, basically, in about 3 weeks' time, or 3.5 weeks now. And the trade had been getting a little bit nervous about that. But as we get into the weekly export sales numbers, we can take a look here. The corn, only 154,700 tons this past week. Now, China was listed as a buyer of 1.05 million tons of that. But other than that, I mean, Mexico bought about 181,900 tons. Even Saudi Arabia bought a little bit, and so did Japan, but that was it. Now, if you take a look at the soybean sales, 533,400 tons this past week. That was as expected. Back on that corn, they thought we would have, at a minimum, 500,000 tons sold last week, and we only had that 154,000. And the wheat came in at 242,700 tons, and the trade was looking for between 100,000 and 500,000. So that was safe, although it was still not overly exceptional. And actually, it says that China bought 65,900 tons of that total of wheat. So somehow they got that bought, and we didn't hear about it on the overnight rundown. So they were in there for a little bit of wheat last week. Just wanted to point that out. On the next screen, though, was a bit concerning. We had the grain sorghum coming in at a net reduction of 52,200 tons, and it was all sales that had been made to China, and they canceled them. So that was a cause for concern this morning. So that's quite a bit of negative news. What did that make the markets do? Let's take a look at the corn market here with our quotes provided by a bar chart. And now we're back into that routine from last year where whatever the export sales report would indicate, the market would go the other way. So here we go with the corn turning higher. The May contract 4 3/4 higher now at $5.40 per bushel, after a low overnight of $5.29 1/4. And we have December actually tying, I believe, its earlier contract high when it hit $4.79. It hit it and touched it. We're one tick below it right now. Now we're 2 ticks below it. 5 higher, though, on the day on the new crop December corn. And soybeans taking the baton and just running away today. Here we have the May soybeans 29 1/4 higher at 14.36 3/4. September up 17 1/4 at 12.86 1/4. Brian Hoops joins us now with Midwest Market Solutions. Wow, what a performance here, Brian. That's unexpected to see this kind of market action on a really terrible export sales report. And here we have new crop corn tying its record high, or excuse me, contract high.
Yeah, it is. It's right up near those old highs, and looks like it wants to move above it, Marlon. I think we're starting to get, the positioning ahead of next week's supply and demand report. That report comes out on Tuesday. We submitted our estimates to the news wires, and what we've seen or heard from as a response is ending stocks expected to tighten for corn and for soybeans both. Wheat probably going to be close to unchanged, and I think we're starting to see a little bit of positioning ahead of that report. And then as well as you talk about conditions around the southern Texas areas, a lot of clients there are telling me they are apt to switch from corn into cotton or something else if their conditions don't dry out. They have very wet conditions, don't want to plant too late in their growing season. And so there's a need for the market, I think, to put in some premium in the new crop contracts to give that incentive to plant every acre that we can this spring.
Well, now that's an interesting twist, and we know that grain sorghum is already at a steep premium to corn in the southern plains. I've heard maybe $1.50 over the price of corn. Just wondered how that would factor in there. Grain sorghum you usually plant a little later.
Yeah, that's something I'll be checking into as well. If producers will be moving into cotton, grain sorghum, or some other crop, even a wheat contract possibly. But it's what we're hearing right now is that it's too wet conditions in a lot of areas. They've had a lot of rain, very cold conditions, even some snow in parts of Texas, and it's something that I think bears watching. But markets showing a lot of strength here today. Corn, I think we talked on Tuesday, had its second highest close in contract history the other day, and we're kind of adding on to those gains again today.
Well, that's really interesting stuff from that perspective. Usually we hear about how dry it is in Texas, and Now you're talking about how wet it is in the south. Let's look at the wheat. And on the Chicago wheat market right now, we have the May contract now a penny higher at 6.57. So, Brian, it's actually gained a dime off of its earlier low. We had been under pressure early today. The other months are a little weaker, though. May Kansas City wheat 3 1/4 higher at 6.29 1/4. And in the Minneapolis market, we currently have the May contract now 4 1/4 higher at 6.47 1/4. Welcome back in a moment. We'll take a look at the livestock trade from the perspective of Brian Hoops right after this. Brian Hoops was talking about cotton just a moment ago, and let's take a look at what that market is doing right now. And on the May futures on the cotton, well, they had been lower, and they have flipped and gone higher now, 40 points higher at 88.85 per pound. And December, 22 points higher at 85.23 per pound. Now for our livestock trade. We had export sales numbers on beef and pork this morning. We can take a look at those, and they were pretty healthy, actually. We had the beef coming in at 22,600 tons. We had the pork sales, 59,600 tons. Live cattle are down, though. We have the April down 45 cents at 118.95, June down 40. On the feeder cattle market right now, you have the April contract at $1.37 lower at 139.92, well off its earlier high of 141.20. And lean hogs have the April contract 45 cents lower at 87.47. So this market goes back and forth every other day. Let's go back to Brian Hoops. What do you see happening here, Brian, in the livestock?
Well, yeah, you talked about the export market, and those were very strong this morning, I thought, especially for pork. Those sales were outstanding, 59.6 million tons, and we shipped out a tremendous amount as well. And the beef sales, I thought, were decent. Not spectacular, but rebound from the last couple of weeks. And that's, what we need to see as we're in that time frame right now. Probably going to be the largest supplies of the year. If we can work through these and have strong exports, it's going to hold our markets at steady at a worst case scenario. In fact, we saw a cash trade this week at 114, the fifth week in a row of 114 trade, or at least steady trade for 5 consecutive weeks. And, that's kind of a minor victory considering the increase in supplies during that time frame.
Excellent points. Thank you, Brian, for joining us. Appreciate it. We'll talk with you real soon. Brian Hoops is with Midwest Market Solutions, and he's based in Springfield, Missouri. Janet, I'll turn it back to you.